Europe is facing an existential crisis. It has forgotten why it exists. Europe cannot articulate what it is. It cannot clearly discern the shape of its soul. It is lost and drifting. Idealism is becoming nihilism. Truth is now shadows. There is a bear prowling around the hearts of Europe, a patient, determined bear, a creature familiar with the shadows. Russia is not facing an existential crisis. Under the authoritarian leadership of Vladimir Putin, Russia has defined itself in the modern world. It is not a land of hope and glory. It is not the land of opportunity. It is not a land of peace unto all men. It is Dostoevsky's homeland, where men only like to count his troubles, but he does not count his joys.
The agenda is to, destroy Europe, to divide in terms of political unity, and then when divided to govern. Divide et impera, the old Roman saying, is adequate in this case.
I think we still believe that in many instances Russian Federation is our partner, but no, it's not a partner. It's a challenger. It's a part of the global problem we're facing with.
After the elections of Trump, after Brexit, possibly the next move will be possible victory of Le Pen in France, because French will say, well, why Anglo-Saxons can disturb the world, we can do the same. That basically means that our democratic and liberal values, in fact, are not so deep embedded. And that basically means we have to understand, we have to believe that actually this system at the end is better than any type of authoritarianism. And I'm strongly convinced that these dark ages will be passing one day. How much victims it will claim, that's another question.
Are political earthquakes occurring because large sections of the population are being left behind by globalization? Or is the perception a more powerful hallucinogenic than the reality? Is the ascendancy of anarchy and Russian influence a product of economics or propaganda?
Media is a weapon for economics, for politics, and even for military art, because if you are looking and reading Russian military doctrines, media are inside. So strategic communication is there inside.
Russia is very good at infiltrating the political debate, partly by hacking into the debate, by trolling, but by also offering Russian state media in multiple languages, in European languages. Sputnik News, Russia Today exists globally in many European languages. So they are definitely trying to offer an alternative worldview to the European audience as well.
I have to admit, Kremlin is so good in presenting those pieces of information as real. Although they know, they are about to break the European system and to influence our minds.
It is obvious that it is influencing in ways which are open, seen quite easily, and the ways which are not seen by influencing the mentality of a big part of European media, but also through ownership of media outlets, newspapers, TV stations and others.
That's the best time of your life.
In the space of 1 week, 3 countries in the European sphere tilted back towards Russia: Estonia, Bulgaria and Moldova. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has expressed his admiration for Vladimir Putin, and Italy has shown no willingness to toughen its stance towards Russia despite slaughter in Syria, Russia's occupation of Crimea and the shooting down of a Dutch airliner. And then there's Donald Trump.
If he says great things about me, I'm going to say great things about him. I've already said he is really very much of a leader. You can say, oh, isn't that a terrible thing? He called, the man has very strong control over a country. Now, it's a very different system, and I don't happen to like the system. But certainly in that system, he's been a leader far more than our president has been a leader.
Historically, America is Russia's adversary. Today, the embryonic Trump administration is aligning itself closely with the Putin personality cult. This isn't just a narcissistic bromance. The roots of this pivot lie within the darkness of propaganda.
I believe that those people who are making business in media, they are not concerned about ideology or values. For them, in some way, there is a similar driving force, just like for politicians. We need a popular support, otherwise we are not elected. Media needs breaking news. Trump, Putin, Le Pen, Farage, they are giving much better breaking news than average politicians, so they choose them. So in some ways they were normalizing in people's minds the image of reactionary forces, and this is the responsibility of media.
Steve Bannon, the populist architect of Trump's white lash success, is not an all-American Dixieland racist good old boy. Bannon, by his own admission, is a Leninist. His stated objective is not to make American government great again, but to destroy American government, to burn it to the ground, stamping on the bones of the Democratic and Republican parties. By definition, Steve Bannon is an enemy of the state. This is the same Steve Bannon who has pledged to help Marine Le Pen and Nigel Farage destroy the European Union.
We didn't recognize increasingly strong Russian propaganda and disinformation as such. I mean, I think we overslept for some time distortive influence of information campaign coming from Russia and its allies. And well, secondly, I think we are too naive probably to analyze and to understand what it's about. We are all social media related persons, and we follow sometimes unwillingly the narrative which is formulated by the Russians and not critically assessed by us.
Ma ei usu, et Venemaa propaganda oleks selle müütiliselt osav. Pigem on nad lihtsalt löövad massiga. Nad panevad tohutu raha oma propagandasse, nii venekeelsesse propagandasse kui järjest rohkem sellisesse propagandasse, mida nad teevad erinevates võõrkeeltes, alates inglise ja saksa keelest kuni rumeenia keeleni.
When you see Russian propaganda in European media, is this a narrative which is designed to strengthen Russia or to strengthen Putin?
Well, in a Russian discourse, Putin is Russia and Russia is Putin.
Many people in Europe are still not understanding exactly what kind of danger actually brings authoritarian, totalitarian systems. And they still think that there is something good maybe behind this blurred line of truth and lies. So they themselves are not, I would say, enough educated, or the value system is simply crooked.
To counter the intense propaganda winds from the East, the European External Action Force created an anti-propaganda team just over a year ago. East Stratcom's team of 9 started challenging the massive Russian propaganda machine. With minuscule resources, they made a strong start, articulating the nature of the threats and receiving global applause for the quality of their work.
The External Action Service, the Stratcom team, is badly funded, a tiny team, and fighting the likes of a warehouse in St. Petersburg full of hackers and propaganda specialists. It's too late, isn't it?
Good that it happened and it was created, but it is really fighting to survive. We in the Parliament, we are asking to give more money and more staff. But there are forces within the Union, including within the EU administration, who are not helpful.
Who's opposing?
To say the least. I mean, I won't give you the names, but I would give all of them the same label, Russia understanders. Rusland verstehers.
Anna Fotyga, a Polish Conservative MEP and former foreign minister, has said the Kremlin wants to divide Europe. Her recent European Parliament report called for East Stratcom to be boosted with a €1 million budget. Parliament agreed, and the allocation has now been discussed in the overall EU budget negotiations. But the Russians spend close to €1 billion on propaganda efforts targeting Europe. If Europe is serious about challenging the Russian narrative, much, much more is needed.
I'm very interested right now, for example, in an investigation and report on Euronews, because it's a good example for a channel where we put European public money in, but others, like the Russians, make their own strategy also with Euronews.
In October this year, Euractiv reported that the Russian service of Euronews had 5 job openings, but refused to take any of the 17 journalists from its Ukrainian department. Euronews management explained that not hiring any Ukrainian journalists was a specific instruction from the Russian shareholder, Russian State TV. Euronews, a private media outlet, also receives substantial funding from the European Union. In effect, the European Union is subsidizing a Russian government-controlled narrative on Ukraine.
It is something which is like an iceberg. You see the top, you don't see the major part of it which is under the water, because it is hidden. But it's immense, the influence on politicians. I see here in the European Parliament those who would never think themselves of being influenced by this narrative, but they are, because this is the shape of European media.
The most important thing to be done is to create the environment for quality journalism, quality reporting. I'm among those who believe that you cannot defeat propaganda by propaganda, but you will defeat and you will win against propaganda if you really help good journalism.
Many Europeans don't understand why Italy is soft towards Russia. On the face of it, Italy shares the same liberal Western values, but for most of the 20th century, Italian commentators said Italy had 2 religions, communism and Catholicism. Italy was mother to the fascist builder Mussolini, who is still revered by many. It has been a mafia state governed by Omerta, the dark bromance. Today, Matteo Renzi and Federica Mogherini are from a different generation, but like many Italians, their political heritage, their political upbringing was dramatized by the theater of mafia and the high art of religious and political demagogues. The Russian way is not alien to Italians. It has been normalized in the same way Trump is normalizing Putin's propaganda that Farage, Le Pen, Orbán are disguised as liberators and defenders of the disenfranchised. Russia's propaganda is not a swirl of communism and Eastern Catholicism. It is from the playbook of Dostoevsky. Where there is no God, he said, everything is permissible. The populists are not the Messiah. They are false prophets. By their fruit, you will know them.